Sean Lavery, lead mentor of Dawgma Robotics, FRC 1712, and I'm going to talk to you about our 2017 robot, Thomas Newcomen. Thomas Newcomen was built to play the first Steamworks game, which is played with these large gears, along with wiffle balls. The reason we call him Thomas Newcomen is through history classes, our students found out that Thomas Newcomen was an inventor who invented the Newcomen steam engine in the year 1712, tied it back to both the game theme, which is a steampunk game, and our team number. So this is the robot Thomas Newcomen. As I mentioned, the primary scoring object that we built our robot around were these large plastic gears, which we position and place on the airship for points. There was also wiffle balls that were a lot less points, and a hanging challenge in the end game at the end of the game, which we also prioritized heavily. So as part of being able to view ourselves as a gear specialist, we wanted to be able to receive gears from the human player and pick them up off the ground. For the human player mechanism, we built what we called the beaver tail back here, which is designed, there's a chute that would slide the gears out, and the gears would slide in from a wide variety of angles and placements, making it easy for us to ingest the gear from the human player. This is something we spent a lot of time optimizing, finding out which angles work best for variable distances, variable positions, and variable angles relative to the wall to make it easy to load our robot via human player chute. Additionally, we also had a ground intake utilizing spinning rollers that would come and ingest the gears along the ground, placing them into our scoring mechanism. Our gear scoring mechanism was pneumatically actuated with a series of 3 different sets of pneumatic cylinders, 2 cylinders each. First and foremost, there are 2 positioned inside the frame of the robot to rotate the gear scoring mechanism from the down stowed position to the up scored position. Secondly, there were 2 sliding plates which would grasp the gear and release the gear. Initially, these were our only moving components of this mechanism, and we'd drive up to the scoring peg, release, and back off. But we found it to be challenging to ensure it stayed on the peg, so we added these trigger flaps, which would help eject the gear forward out onto the peg. This simplified our scoring for our drivers and operators and made it a much more clean scoring operation. Each set of these 2 cylinders were routed each back to 1 pneumatic solenoid, so they trigger simultaneously together. Additionally, the trigger flaps were tied in via software to automatically release a fraction of a second after the claw opened up to ensure good contact with the gear spreading out. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about our climbing mechanism. The endgame challenge that year involved ropes, which could either be supplied by the field or, as most teams did, provided by the team and then attached to the field. Initially, we had a large knot that we would grab onto with large fingers and spool ourselves up, but over time we opted for a Velcro solution instead. So we have the hook side of hook and loop tape here, and the rope had loop material that could be caught onto. And then once it was caught onto, this would rotate, spool up the rope, and lift the robot off the ground and touch the trigger mechanism. Our climbing mechanism was initially powered by a single motor, but over time we found that we wanted to be faster with it, so we added a second motor and reduced the reduction. Initially, at our first event, we allowed it to unpowered spool back to the ground, but afterwards we decided it was healthier for the motor if we didn't have load on it near the end of the match, so we had a ratcheting mechanism which would ratchet onto that hex there and hold us up in the air after the conclusion of the match, so you didn't have to remove to place the robot back on the ground. We spent a lot of time customizing our rope to make sure it never broke, which it never did, didn't slip, and was easy to attach to. We had a student whose primary job on the team that year was being our rope manager, rope inspector, and rope creator. So we have a camera mounted here in a 3D printed case with the nice 1712 text on there. That was used for aligning to the pegs of autonomous. We had a pretty successful straight ahead drive to the middle peg autonomous, and a variable success side routine which could go to the airship from the sides and score the side pegs. Additionally, we had hoped for the vision system on the robot to help us align during teleop and speed up our teleop scoring as well. Westtown, we were an alliance captain, but we ultimately lost in the quarterfinals, but proved that our timing was reliable, our scouting was robust. We didn't quite score as many gears as we were hoping, but we were still kind of getting the hang of it, working out some electrical and pneumatic gremlins, working out driver practice and our release mechanisms, but we were still good enough to be an alliance captain there. At our second district event in Seneca, we did experience some more challenges. We didn't rank as high, we had some ups and downs, but we had a higher ceiling. We had some more trouble with a couple of our climbs, some electrical gremlins that fought us a little bit, but we ultimately got picked, and we still lost in the quarterfinals. We had a lot of promise in that alliance, and we got real close to having a full 2-rotor autonomous, which is a big achievement. We just weren't quite fast enough to deposit all the gears. And then we went on to more camps where we had the flaps working, we swapped to the Velcro on the climber. We were competitive. Ultimately, we had a really poor last qualification match in which we threw our chain on our intake and only scored 1 gear. And then another team prevented us from climbing with their defense. So it was kind of a poor note to finish on. We didn't end up getting picked at March champs, but we still showed the potential to run at just a much higher threshold of competition there. In the off season, we ended up going to Ramp Ride the following fall, and our qualification performance was really rocky. We were rotating through 5 different drive crews, a different drive crew in every qualification match. So we fell in the draft a lot, but ultimately we were forming a really powerful alliance with captained by 3314, along with 834, 1403, and us. And we ended up going through and winning the whole event, and that was our first event win as a team. It was a really awesome experience. We had to play in every single playoff match. Climbed, I think, in all but one of them. Scored a bunch of gears, both with our ground intake and from the human player. It was really a great experience with this robot, and a great way to send off Thomas Newcomen.